Hello and welcome to my channel, AB Make It Artwork, where we do what we do to make that artwork for you. And if you're new to my channel, maybe hit that subscribe button, join the AB Creative Crew. We do sketchy art things. So, as you might know or be aware of, I am doing Valentine themed portraits. It is a special commission sale in which I am doing couple portraits for $10. What comes with that Valentine's Day themed portrait? Well, you get a monochromatic portrait with you and your partner, you and your best friend, or you and your favorite pet. But if you want to, you can also get original characters, or personas, or just your pets. Who knows? The possibilities are limitless. And it is the two portraits in the one, like the two people or two subjects in the one portrait for $10. If you'd like additional people, pets, OCs, what have you. Each edition is an extra $5 because that means more time, more effort. This is a limited time sale that I am doing. It will be over after Valentine's Day, and on Valentine's Day I will only be taking 3 commission requests for these portraits because I gotta spend it with my special someone too. But yeah, after Valentine's Day, portraits will be going back to $10 each portrait, so get it while this deal's still pretty hot and legit. Like, $10 for 2 portraits instead of $20 for a portrait? I mean, pay what you will, but don't beat a deal. Anyways, the subject of today's video, since it is the season of love, is past relationships, past loves, flames that I have had, and some healthy and unhealthy qualities that may come with those romantic or intimate feelings that you may have for special someones. And since this is the first video, it's going to be a lot of first instances of romantic feelings. So today's video is going to be about my first crush and how that ended up getting crushed pretty quickly, my first relationship, and the idea of unhealthy infatuation. So my first crush happened when I was in the 3rd grade. And I think about that time, you're about 10, like 9 to 11, depending on when you were born during the year. And I had a crush on one of my friends. And at the time, I used to only think that I was only allowed to ever have a crush on other boys that I knew, because the TV didn't tell me otherwise. But I had a crush on one of my friends. And by the end of 3rd grade, my friend and I, we were going to be moving. Like, he was going to be moving somewhere else and not be at the same school. I was going to be moving somewhere else and not be at the same school. So I decided to tell him, hey, I have a crush on you. If you're hearing that, that's my stupid coffee pot being a jerk. But I think his response was more, I like you as a friend, not I like you in the same way that I have a crush on you. But... and this is where unhealthy infatuations come into place. I didn't know the difference in 3rd grade. Saying, I like you, like I'd want to date you someday, and I like you as a friend. So I had this unhealthy obsession, this unhealthy infatuation that one day me and my crush would meet up again and we would become boyfriend and girlfriend, and then we'd get married and we'd like be in love and so happy dappy, so happy. And it's just like that we'd meet up one day and that we'd be boom, bam, right in a relationship, married, shipped off, have kids. Like, and that's unrealistic. Like, as someone that had this crush, like, there's a difference between being in love and being in love with the idea of love. And at the time, I was just in love with the idea of being in love, of being in a relationship, of being with this person and making this idea. And it's not quite healthy to sort of fantasize and fictionalize relationships because that other person isn't asking for it. It's obsessive in nature. And it doesn't really lead to positive, healthy relationships, having an obsession over someone. So for years, I had this idea, and then eventually when I was 15, we found each other through Facebook, and I thought, this is it. This is fate. This is destiny. I'm going to start talking with him. He's going to remember that I had a crush on him. And from 3rd grade, now in high school? Yeah, I just finished middle school. So from 3rd grade to 9th grade, he's going to remember I have a crush on him? I don't think so. And I thought that this is where it gets really dumb. I thought when he was suggesting that he was going to go to a movie and that I should go see it sometime, that he was asking me out on a date. And this is where the crushing realization that I had just obsessed and completely made a fictional ideal that, like, I had taken obsession too far with thinking that he wanted to be with me and projecting that ideal onto our conversation. And it turns out he just wasn't interested in me in that way. Like, I was his friend, I was one of his closest friends, and I made myself look like such an idiot. Like, it was embarrassing. I felt stupid. Like, I had made this ideal. Like, I had kept to this ideal, and I didn't care about this person. I was in lust with them. I was in lust with this ideal that I had made up in my head of us being in a relationship. And my mom would tell me this when I was younger, when I was first getting into a relationship, and she'd warn my friends, like, you're not in love. You're only, like, you're not even a month into your relationship. You're not even a month into your relationship. You're not in love, sweetie. You're in lust. You're attracted to the idea of being with them and being intimate with them, but you don't know that person. You don't know them well enough to say that you love them. And that's something my mom would say a lot when I was much younger. That you're not in love, you're in lust. You just desire this ideal of being in the relationship with them and to keep it going because you're hormonal. You're trying to experiment, kiddo. And that's not wrong. That's totally valid and natural that you're like hormonal and experimenting with yourself and discovering your identity and stuff, you know? Suddenly this is the talk. But that's how that situation ended, with my unhealthy obsession with this ideal that this person who didn't know I still had feelings for them, very one-sided feelings, just became awkward. So this is going to lead into my first relationship. Now, this was during the same summer, but at the end of the summer. And if you know anything from musicals about summer loves, they are fast, they are hard, they are intense in a roller coaster of emotions, especially if this is your first relationship. And it lasted about a month, less than a month. And as an adult, as a rational adult, I can realize I wasn't really in love with this person. I was just in love with the idea of being in love. But, yeah, let's just talk about how I met them. I met this person through Facebook. At the time, I was an uwu girl. I was an uwu, emo, furry fandom girl. And looking back on how I used to talk and how I used to interact, I cringe at myself being that uwu, emo scene, furry phase fangirl. And it was dumb. But we talked and communicated over art, and my furry art, like, we'd met through a mutual friend at the time. I was like, oh, you should talk to my friend. They also do art stuff. And we talked about art stuff, and we talked further, and, like, I was like, oh, this person's kind of cute, actually. I might think of going out on a date with them. And we did go out on a date. First date was kind of a miss, because he didn't get there on time and had no way to tell me that he wasn't going to be there. But eventually we went for, like, our first date, and that was pretty chill. Like, it was a very chill relationship. Like, we hung out with each other. We would go to the library. We'd go hang out at the little shopping center. Like, it was really chill, and we would talk a lot through Messenger. And, like, he was pretty great. He liked art. He wanted to make his own story with his own characters. I think he eventually wanted to make his own game, and he also played guitar, which I thought was, like, super hot at the time. Like, oh my gosh, this guy's musically inclined. And that was, like, one of my things, is that I would always find a partner that was musically inclined, because I loved music too. I loved being creative. And these were things that, like, attracted me to want to like be with him in a relationship. But like with a summer love, with a summer romance, it gets crazy. It gets crazy. And it wasn't crazy on his part. And I don't think it was crazy on my part, but maybe my reaction would have seemed a little extra from like in an adult perspective. But at the time I was like 15, I'm an emotional person, like I'm hormonal. I'm like trying to figure out stuff and like getting getting to that business of like being in love, like just in love with the idea of being in love, but in all actuality, I was in lust with this idea of keeping up this relationship. But it did end, and this is again touching on the ideas of unhealthy infatuation. How it ended was through a conversation with an ex. And this ex was pretty insane. Now, as I said, this was my first relationship, so I didn't have an ex, but he had an ex. He had a long distance ex from his first relationship, and she was a manipulator. She was abusive, emotionally abusive, and just crazy is like all I can think of at the time. I think she's grown to be a better person. I don't know. I blocked her as soon as like 2 months after this happened. Because all she would message me about was like my first ex. And I was like, I'm not his mom. I'm sure that if he blocked you, he did it because he didn't want to talk to you anymore. And this particular ex was obsessed with the idea of keeping my first boyfriend, my first, to herself. And the way that she would try to keep him with her was to threaten self-harm, threaten suicide, send pictures of self-harm, send messages about how she was going to hurt herself if he ever tried to like look for someone else in a relationship. And it got to the point where he couldn't look at his messages anymore. Like he couldn't look at his emails. He didn't feel comfortable. He would have me look at the emails because it's like, I can't deal with this. Like at one point she acquiesced and said, no, like you have your relationship. And then it's like the next day she's like, no, I don't want you seeing anyone else but like me. And it was just crazy. So it got to the point that I had to check his emails for him. She was sending messages like, I'm on a boat, I'm drinking alcohol, I'm taking pills, I feel so dizzy, I'm in my room, like pictures of pill bottles and alcohol. And then she talked about how she feels sick, how she's dizzy, like manipulating him. She had this unhealthy obsession with her first like partner that he would always come back to her and that they would get married. And at one point he had proposed, but she rejected it. And her being only a couple years older than me at 17, like it makes sense. Like suddenly being proposed to, you're not ready for that kind of commitment at 17. But it ended with us in a group chat and her threatening to commit suicide if we didn't break up. And like if you're ever trying to keep a partner, that is not the way to keep a partner. That's just not healthy. Like we did break up because I didn't want that burden on me of her committing suicide because I was in a relationship or who I was in a relationship with. And like just be mindful of that. If someone's trying to like threaten you with self-harm because you want to break up because you're not into the relationship, because you don't have those feelings for them, like that's not okay. And if you realize that like you're only in love with the idea of being with someone, like you're not in love, you're in lust, honey. Sweetie sugar pies. But that's all for today's story. This will probably be a 4-part series, and if you want to hit me up on any of my other social media, links are all in the description down below. I hope you're having a wonderfully fantastic, lovable season, and that you make sure to do what you do to make that artwork for you. Lots of love. Bye.